Hey folks, it's Marlon Gardner. You're listening to the Divided States of America show. This is normally where I come on Fridays and say it's no show Friday, but I'm going to do one today. It'll be quick, straight to the point. I have a hard time coming on Fridays when it's beautiful. I'm in Southern California. It's beautiful today, not too hot, sun is shining. But I'm going to do a show today, and it's about something positive, but again, in our divisive times, in our divided nation, people will be divided over this as well. We're going to talk Biden's approval rating and what the increase in his approval is all about. We'll do that in seconds, right here on the Divided States of America show.
Welcome to the Divided States of America show, where your host, Marlon Gardner, takes on the most divisive issues in our divided nation. We'll sort through the best and worst of politics and culture, asking questions and looking for answers that our two-ring, two-party circus has failed to provide. And here is your host, Marlon Gardner.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate those of you who can catch us live. Those of you who have to watch on demand, it's the same. I don't care if you're on a walk in the gym, in the car, lounging around on a hot summer weekend, the last weekend of summer, if my dates are correct. Again, I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you being here every day for the show.
And here is your host, Marlon Gardner.
Really, I'm still your host. I know it said it twice. Nonetheless, today's show is going to be quick, straight to the point. A quick take on a reality that is better for Biden and reflective of a few things. But of course, I'm always curious what you think. You always have the ability to email host@thedsashow.com. You could comment on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. If you comment on Facebook or YouTube, I can see your comments on screen. Today, I won't be opening it up for direct access to jump on air because I expect the show to be a little quicker than that. Today is about Biden's approval rating and whether the change is really about what he's accomplished or about his opposition and what they're doing. Again, we'll take a quick look. Here's a poll that was put up. It's available on the New York Times site. Question was pretty simple. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about what the left and right think about it because we already come into most of the discussions with an idea one way or the other. There are a group of people who identify themselves as independents, people who say they have a more open mind and more willing to just sort of look at the issues one by one, and they're not going to follow a party line. They're not just going to vote, from the party's slate of electors. They're going to make that decision one by one. And those independents, a lot of independents are forced to sort of choose one side or another if power or numbers is what they're looking for. We only have two choices, and that leaves out that our opinions may vary even within, the party lines. There may be someone who's 75% Republican, but there's 25% of the things that they just don't agree with. But again, for power and not individual or people's power, but to get things done or to get more of what you want, they have to go with one party or the other. I'm fond of the idea of a third party. I have been fond of the Forward Party, although they have lots to settle, lots of issues that need to be worked out in terms of what is their position on this and that. But, they got me on their slogan, not left, not right, but forward. So it'll be curious to see if a third party can jump in there, because what I would like to see is that the extreme left and the extreme right be discounted, although they have a role in the whole process, but that they be discounted, literally discounted, so that we can find out what the mainstream people want, what the mainstream people are looking for. And I'll just put up a question. I don't mind showing the comments that come in. Jody Simino asked, where are you getting the polling data? This particular poll came from the New York Times and Siena College. I have seen, you have seen, we've all seen a number of polls come out from this organization where they just ask the question, we get the result, and we play it here. I'd be happy to take additional poll results if you have any, Jody, that you'd like us to be considering for the program. But for today, I'm using a New York Times poll that says there are changes in voter sentiment. A percentage of respondents saying they think the United States is on the right track, and in a July poll and in a September poll. As you can see here, in July, Democrats thought, 27% of them, we were on the right track. In September, it's now 50%. Independents, 9%, which is an extraordinarily low number, jumped 3 times that amount to 27% of independents who believe we are on the right track. As you can see from the Republicans, there's been no change. Along party lines, it tends to be clearly, if you're in another party and you believe what they believe, your opinion doesn't really vary or change much to go one way or the other. So again, I'm not even really interested in the Democrats' views, although there are some things that have made them, I would imagine, think that things are better. It's really the independents that I'm more curious about, and the jump that they made is more significant to me, because ultimately those are the people who I would like to think or hope will be the ones who decide our elections. The ones who don't, just almost instinctively or from habit align themselves with a party for most of the beliefs, even if they don't cover all beliefs. Those are the people who at least claim to be trying to take an independent look at where we're at. Well, I appreciate that. And the movement there is what made me pause and what made me take a look at this and say, hey, what's going on? Now, there are obvious reasons that his approval may be going up. And this is not an endorsement for me on his approval. The reality is inflation's bad. And unless he gets that under control during his presidency, it's not going to matter what accomplishments people think he made, because the amount of money you have to spend for the same things you've been purchasing forever going up at the rate it has is just a fundamental problem that Biden will never be able to escape. His approval will never be in the positive or the majority of Americans until that is addressed. Whether he is capable, the Fed is capable, whether demand will decrease and or supply increase, whether the distribution channels improve, those things are all remain to be seen. We have talked about inflation on the program. I think it was episode 40 or 41 where we spent a considerable amount of time talking about the details of why things are the way they are. And in our most recent post on Facebook, there is lively debate and discussion. About 150 to 160 comments and counting, people going back and forth on their opinion of what the GOP's plan is for inflation. But here are the factors that are obviously contributing to people's willingness to approve of the job Biden is doing. Starting with falling gas prices. I know 13 weeks straight, if I remember that number correctly, 13 weeks straight, we've seen gas prices go down. That's one of those real things that once a week, or for people who have to stretch dollars farther, the ones who have to go to the gas station every 3 or 4 days because they're not in position to fill up, that's one that people just feel. They know it. They understand it. It shows up on that sign before you pull in. It even affects what gas station you pull into. If you've got 2 or 3 on a corner, it's not uncommon for people to go to the one with the best price. It's just the reality. I know in my neighborhood, I know in the surrounding neighborhoods, which station or two has the best prices. Because when I was paying $6.56 for diesel, I remember saying to myself, this is absurd. I can't keep doing this. So I know where the best gas prices are. We all do. But gas prices have been falling. I don't know if there is a point in which it goes low enough that his approval rating will continue to move literally just based on that, because it's one of the actual pain points people feel, they understand, they touch, and it makes a difference. The other one is his legislative success, which I'm sure in success in terms of what Democrats want, I'm sure that propelled the approval in September, or in terms of the direction of the country, from 27% to 50%, based purely on his recent legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, improperly named, because that's not its sole purpose or the motivation behind it even. It may have some long-term impacts, but it's not what it was designed for. So, but I think people see the government focused on things that are important to them. And for half of the country, at least from who they voted for president, climate change actually matters to them. Being able to negotiate drug prices matters to them. So there are issues and things that came from that legislation that are clearly going to move the dial for people and their appreciation for what Joe Biden's doing. But here's the real question for me. If you already agreed with him, anytime he accomplishes something, his approval will be better. If you already disliked him, anytime he does something, even if it has a positive impact on you, you are likely still in many cases to dislike him. But the independents are the ones that I'm most curious about. And then there's the other factor that I don't know how to say, you just can't leave it out. There are people who would literally otherwise support the Republicans, but they're having an issue with Donald Trump. And the contention here is a good portion of the approval that Joe Biden has gained very well could be a result of the presence of Donald Trump. Now, if you're a Trump supporter, that doesn't make any sense to you. But just based on the popular vote in America, more people supported Biden than Trump. We've already had 60 courtrooms decide that that lie is a lie and that there was no mass voter fraud. So I'm not going to go back and forth on that because the courts have decided. And if you're not using the courts, who in fact are you going to use to adjudicate disputes and issues that where you can't find agreement? I'm curious, what else are you going to do? Who else are you going to use? If we don't have that as an arbiter, what would you like us to use as the arbiter? If we just leave it to our votes, well, the votes happened and they didn't come out in Trump's favor. But part of the approval or the increase in approval for Joe Biden, many believe, is actually Donald Trump. Here is a great clip from an article I read earlier today. It came from a guy named Marvin Mersch, 64, a self-identified independent from suburban Minneapolis, said he agreed with Republicans on economic issues but still planned to back Democrats in November. A biomedical engineer, he attributed his vote largely to one man, Mr. Trump. I think every person in the nation should work hard to purge Donald Trump from the Republican Party in one way or another, Mr. Mersch said, because we need a healthy Republican Party, and it's not right now. It's sick. I'll second a piece of that. Do you really believe Donald Trump is the only Republican who can move the dial to make conservative values, conservative policy, a conservative agenda more of a reality for America? Do you really believe he is the only one? Now, I'm not disputing. Your answer could be yes. You could say that's the way we think the country needs to go. In the feedback that we have on facebook.com/the DSA show about the Republicans' plan for inflation, a lot of people said, literally, if you want to know what it takes to be successful, just go back to when Donald Trump was president. Now, obviously, for the sake of trying to bridge the gap and understand the divide, I threw out some ideas. I didn't think the GDP and unemployment rate and job growth when he left was reflective of success at all. And I'm open and willing to admit and acknowledge it was the pandemic. I'll say it again. When Donald Trump left, we were worse off than we were when he got there. He inherited an economy from Obama that for 7 years thrived. I can show you charts of growth and interest rates and all of the things that people question as economic success. The GDP, it grew for years. The growth when Trump got in office didn't really change much. He kept it on the same trend. He did a good job for 3 more years. Unemployment, a good job for 3 more years. I love when people say even black unemployment. Well, black unemployment started after the Bush housing bubble. Obama comes in, 7 years of job growth. It grew for black people too. And when that growth continues for an additional 3 years, you're going to get to the closest we've been as black people to full employment as you've ever been. But it was the 10-year span, not the 3-year span, that all of a sudden gave black people jobs. We have to take that into account. But I've said it enough times, Biden is responsible. He's at the helm. Inflation exists. He pays a price for that. He will lose in many ways as a result of that. And I don't mean the presidential election because the climate, the economy, inflation could be entirely different there. But in the midterms, he's expected to lose. But there's that element of Donald Trump, like Marvin Mersch said here, where he believes we need to purge the party of Donald Trump because it's sick. I have to believe that even for the people with the most staunch conservative values, they can't imagine that the only and or best person is Donald Trump to do it. And then there are people who, yes, that's absolutely what they believe. I'm not arguing with them. I'd like to hear more about why they believe that. Again, if you go to our Facebook group, you will see lively debate and discussion about why they think Donald Trump was the person to do it. But this guy is saying Donald Trump is actually the party or the problem, and the problem for the party, in that there are conservatives who don't agree with the road and the paths that we've gone down. The figure himself is so prominent, so loud, so clear, and so polarizing for some. Don't get me wrong, I talked about Biden's unity speech. It wasn't very unifying. And then there are things like this that make you wonder, is he really the best conservative to guide us? Take a listen.
The old saying, prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich if they want to. I'm just asking, if there is such a prosecutor and they indict you, would that deter you from running for president again?
I don't think the people of the United States would stand for it. And as you know, if a thing like that happened, I would have no prohibition against running. You know that.
I do. That's what I want people to understand. That would not take you out of the arena.
It would not. But I think if it happened, I think you'd have problems in this country, the likes of which perhaps we've never seen before. I don't think the people of the United States would stand for it.
What kind of problems, Mr. President?
I think they'd have big problems. Big problems. I just don't think they'd stand for it. They will not stand for this ultimate of hoaxes.
That was the Hugh Hewitt show, a clip of him interviewing Donald Trump just a couple of days ago. Donald Trump issued a statement on air live that America won't stand for him being indicted. More Americans voted against him than for him. So I don't know that he's accurately representing what America as a whole would feel. I do feel sort of that little tinge when he told the Proud Boys to stand down and stand by, and then they came through on January 6th. I do feel that twitch of, is he saying that there'll be violence or rioting and protesting? I don't know. I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I'm telling you about that little twitch that I got, similar to the day of the January 6th insurrection, where he was telling people it was going to be wild and that they needed to march down there and do something, and they did. Is that the best representation of where we are and what we should be doing? I told you before, there are a number of people who think at some point there'll be a civil war in the next 10 years. Would that make America better? I don't see the character and integrity that would say America won't stand for it after we've heard what he thinks Americans should do when the voting public or America disagrees with them. We've seen that once. I hope that's not a precursor for more. But I have always been honest. The litmus test for Donald Trump as a man and as a president for me has been my children, and whether or not I could justify or explain the behaviors, the lack of integrity, the issues that have come up. And I think there are some people who think the results matter more to them than who he is, his character, and how he goes about accomplishing things in our country. And for me, as a father, I just have a different take as it relates to trying to raise my sons, as it relates to what I hope they do and hope they say to their kids. And I know people like to say mean tweets. No, it's not quite mean tweets. It's the character behind them that makes me wonder and makes Marvin Mersch wonder, is he the only way for Republicans to succeed? Nonetheless, as it relates to today, I think he is a primary reason that Biden's approval rating is increasing. When he comes back onto the scene, the polarization becomes clear. People kind of have to choose as they see it between whatever advances and gains they get, whether it be gas prices or legislative success in Democrats' eyes for Joe Biden, or if they want to go back to what we experienced before with the back and forth, the rhetoric, the tit for tat that exists when it's a Donald Trump dominated news cycle versus whatever else is going on for us, and I don't say in America, but for people as they like to view politics. The next one is abortion. Abortion literally, single-handedly, may impact the midterm elections where presidents with far better approval ratings do really bad in the midterm after they take office, particularly after they take office and they have the same party controlling the Senate and Congress. His approval rating is lower than most people in that position, but the losses, and people are purely speculating, may be far less because of abortion. Women are speaking up. Women are speaking up for their rights. They're speaking up for their ability to decide for themselves. You know I'm pro-life, but you also know I'm pro-minding my business. What I believe shouldn't be imposed on other people unless it's inflicting harm on other people. For the true pro-lifers, many of them will say, well, murder is harm. But then you go down that line and you see Republicans who have become silent or changing their tune about abortion and abortion bans because they saw, for instance, in Kansas, that Republicans aren't for total abortion bans, and they want exceptions in many cases for incest and rape. They want exceptions when the mother's life is in jeopardy, which then makes you question, is it really murder, or can you murder in the case of incest? If there's incest in your family, can you go put a bullet in the person's head? And as much as that actually sounds like a decent idea, we can't do it. Can you abort a baby because there was incest if you believe it's murder? So there are so many things that conflict But one of the things we know is that abortion is mobilizing Democrats, and the outcome of the midterm isn't quite what they thought it would be 6 months ago before the emergence of Donald Trump in this midterm election with his endorsements and his comments like the one on the Hugh Hewitt show where he said Americans aren't going to tolerate him being indicted. I don't believe that. I know at least half of America will be fine with it. As a matter of fact, maybe a little bit more than half will be fine because they don't think he's above the law. Whether he's guilty or not, you're innocent until guilty in this country, so we'll have to see how that works out if they in fact decide to indict. But the reality is the approval rating of Joe Biden is on the rise. And as much as I'm not interested or excited about Democrats approving more or Republicans disapproving, I am very curious about independents because I think those are the difference makers when we come down to elections. Now, I said today would be short. It will be. I only have one other thing, and this one comes up also from the feedback that we received in our Facebook group, facebook.com, the DSA show, facebook.com/the DSA show. Much of that was about Trump and Biden and their policies and economics and where we are as a nation now, where we were as a nation. And a lot of it was around inflation and a lot of it sort of discounted the pandemic's role in inflation, even though we know people had jobs. A lot of them kept their jobs. A lot of them were still making money. And the services and products that they'd normally buy in a normal economy weren't available to them. And when they became available, that pent-up cash and the demand for those items far outweighed supply, and places like China, where they produce much of the products we want, they're still experiencing lockdowns even up to today. So the things that caused the GDP and unemployment and the job growth to take a massive hit before Trump left office, leaving us worse off than we were when he got there, are also a factor in inflation. But as you listen to people go back and forth, they just get discounted. I can't discount the impact of the pandemic on the Trump economy and why it failed. I can't discount the impact of the pandemic on inflation as well. But there are so many people who they'll use COVID to explain themselves, but they won't use COVID to explain someone else. That's part of the divide. It's one of the reasons I appreciate so much the debate that is happening in our Facebook group, because we get an opportunity to have real conversations. The intent is thoughtful, respectful ones, and I'll just be honest, if people are being outrageous, I don't want them there. We don't need them there. We really want to have productive conversations about these issues. So I appreciate the fact that some of you are more than willing to engage and be productive. I hope that continues to quite the significant degree. Now, before we go, I said it'll be short. Where do you get your news? We often talk about the bias in media. I often talk about it. I play a clip and I say, wait, stop, hold on, what was that? And I point out whether it be CNN or MSNBC or Fox, which are the big ones people like to take a look at. But I wanted to show you the chart that I used a long time ago when trying to understand where do the media outlets fall. Now, this isn't related to TV or print or radio. This is based on their online coverage. It's based on the things that they put out for you and me. And if you can see this chart, I've blown it up as big as I can. There are clearly people on the far left looking at the chart. CNN, Daily Beast, Mother Jones, MSNBC, Slate, Vox, the New York Times. And then there are people that are clearly on the far right. The American Spectator, Blaze, the Daily Wire, Fox News, Newsmax, OAN. Where do you get your news? I do my best because even according to this chart, Axios, the BBC, Forbes, News Nation, Newsweek, Reuters, the Wall Street Journal, they line up in the center. I scour the media daily, personal interest, to find accurate, useful information to share both on the program and in our Facebook group and even on Twitter. Where do you get your news? Had you ever seen this chart before? I'm going to post it on all of our media outlets just so you have an opportunity to take a look. I want you to consider it, and I even want more and maybe something to do over the weekend. Wherever you fall on that political spectrum, go look on the converse. Go look from whatever position you sit on the opposite of where you sit and take in some news. Find out if they have any different information on the same subjects that are of interest to you than what you've been getting from the outlet you've looked at. Once you've had a chance to do that, go look in the middle, go look in the center, and see if they have a different take on the same subjects. Boy, it would be nice if the information we gathered, if the information we consumed, if the information we used to formulate our opinions and even formulate our votes had more oomph to it. If it had other perspectives, if it wasn't just constantly going to people who are going to say the things we want to hear, and if we were able to spend a little bit more time with people with different opinions. Because like we talked about with immigration, where 72% of the country want better border security, 72% of the country want the DACA recipients, the children of illegal immigrants, to get into our country and have a pathway to citizenship. Even when we have a great consensus, we can't get things done. But a lot of that stems from the media and the fact that based on the information you receive, why would you want to? So here's a project. Last weekend, the request was avoid politics this weekend. That's what it was last week. This week is if you're going to be immersed in it and you're trying to figure out the things that are going to impact your family, your dollars, your taxes, your future, take a look at where you get your information from. See where you fall on the spectrum. Which of these outlets do you go to? Spend a little time on the opposition directly where you are. If you go to outlets that lean a little bit left, go check out the ones that lean a little bit right. If you come from the far right, go check out the ones on the left. See if there's anything to be gained. We certainly will be trying to give you as much as we can here on the Divided States of America show, where we take on the most divisive issues in our divided nation. We want your feedback, your opinions, your perspective on the issues that are dividing us. And more importantly, we want that in a thoughtful, respectful way so we can start looking for ways to find compromise. And if we can't get our leadership to do it on either side of the aisle, if we can't get politics to improve our lives and the things we want collectively, then at some point we have to speak up ourselves and make that happen. That's what we're here for. I appreciate you tuning into today's episode of the Divided States of America. This is episode number 45. I can't believe I've done this 45 times. I appreciate those of you who listen live. I appreciate those of you who follow us on demand. Do us a favor, share with a friend. Share with someone who both agrees with you and someone who doesn't as we tackle these issues. Like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You'll be alerted when we have our next show and what the topics are. We'll put some things out this weekend as we prepare ourselves for Monday. But until then, go check out some media outlets you wouldn't normally listen to. Create some joy stories. Be able to come back here and tell us how you've bridged the gap and maybe moved a little bit left or right because you've had an opportunity, whether it be through the show, friends and family, just random people, where you learned something that made you think maybe the other side ain't all bad. Maybe we do have the same common goals and we want the same things for our families. If you accomplish that, we'll talk about it here next week, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You're listening to the Divided States of America show. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for watching the Divided States of America show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the channel and share this video with your family and friends.